He clearly loved his son deeply, but he was sentenced to life in prison for murdering him. Everyone thought he had lost his mind, but he was actually innocent. The reason he stayed silent for 5 years without ever defending himself was because on the night his son was killed, he was asleep in the hallway. Haunted by guilt for failing to protect his son, he silently accepted punishment and humiliation until his sister-in-law Rachel, a well-known journalist, came to visit, breaking his life of despair. Rachel pulled out a photo. It was taken by a friend at a theme park a few weeks earlier, and the boy in the lower right corner of the image looked exactly like David's dead son Matthew. Even the unique birthmark on his face matched perfectly. David froze instantly, but he was the one who personally found his son's body back then. Even though the face was hard to recognize, the DNA test confirmed it was Matthew. Maybe this boy just happened to look like him.
I found him. He was dead.
David tried to stay firm in his words, but a spark of hope ignited in his heart. What if his son was still alive? Soon after, he went to see the warden, because the warden had known his father for decades and had watched him grow up. So he told him everything about the photo and begged him to retrieve his son's case file from the Boston police. But the warden coldly reminded him the DNA results from the body had matched completely and told him to stop dreaming. However, after David left, the warden canceled all his plans for the day, immediately flew to Boston, and that night had his staff secretly deliver the case file to David. David had been identified as the murderer back then, because there were no signs of forced entry at the scene. No foreign fingerprints or DNA were found, and he also had a history of sleepwalking episodes.
And during a night terror, is it possible for someone to inflict harm on another person without being conscious of it or even remembering it when they wake up?
Yes, it is. Due to the severity of the injuries, a visual ID was impossible, but DNA tests confirmed the body was Matthew Burrows.
The baseball bat that caused Matthew's death was confirmed to belong to David, and no other fingerprints were found on it. More importantly, a neighbor named Winslow also testified against him, saying she saw David burying the bat in the backyard that night. After reviewing the file, David circled Winslow's name, unable to understand why she would give false testimony, but he knew there had to be a conspiracy behind it to uncover the truth. David immediately contacted Rachel and shared his doubts. Rachel also told him something strange. On the night before Matthew was killed, a white boy of similar age and build had mysteriously gone missing and was never found, which meant Matthew might have been kidnapped, and the body David saw that night could have been that missing boy. Only the DNA evidence may have been tampered with. After leaving the prison, Rachel began investigating the neighbor immediately and discovered something shocking. 1 month after David was imprisoned, Winslow had already changed her identity, sold her house, and vanished without a trace. This made her even more certain that Winslow was the key to the case. Once she was found, the truth would eventually come out. But just as Rachel felt hopeful, David ran into danger. Late at night while everyone was asleep, a guard named Ted woke David up, saying he needed to take him to the medical unit. David felt uneasy, but as a prison guard he had no choice but to comply. As expected, Ted led him into an empty hallway and pulled out a knife to silence him.
I'm sorry, Burrows.
Luckily, David was already prepared. During the struggle, he pushed the attacker down and ran while shouting for help. But what he did not expect was that the end of the hallway was locked shut. Ted slowly approached with the knife in hand, and David had become a trapped prey.
I don't have a choice. I took their money. Whose money? Prisoner salute!
David was knocked unconscious by another guard, who suddenly appeared, and was saved just in time. However, the next day, Ted turned the tables, claiming David had faked illness to go to the medical unit, and attacked him on the way. Even worse for David, the warden believed Ted's story, and prepared to send David to solitary confinement for even harsher punishment.
Philip, if I go to a head seg, I'm a dead man.
You're not going to Edsig.
The truth was that everything earlier had been staged by the warden to test Ted. He already knew Ted had been bribed, and because he had promised David's father to look after him, he believed David was wrongly accused, so the warden immediately arranged for him to wear his son's guard uniform, planning to disguise him as staff and let him escape through the visitor route. But at that moment, Ted overheard from another guard that David had not been sent to solitary confinement. He instantly realized something was wrong.
Excuse me, warden.
Ted, I thought I told you to go home.
I just spoke to the AdSeg officer. He said you never dropped off Burrows.
Yeah, I was gonna take him over just after I walked my son up. Go home, Ted.
Yes, sir.
Ted pretended to obey orders, but kept his eyes locked on David. After confirming again, he was certain the man in front of him was David.
Burrows? Hey, whoa! Let him go!
At the last moment, David reacted quickly, pointed a gun at the warden, and turned the carefully planned escape into a staged hostage situation. Then, under the terrified gaze of the guards, he broke through and escaped. The warden jumped into the driver's seat and slammed the accelerator, taking David away from the prison. But they had not gone far when sirens screamed behind them. A thrilling life and death chase began. Whether he can escape alive and uncover the truth of his son's return from the dead. I'm 6069. See you next time.